Hi everyone, my name is Yujie and I am a first-year PhD student at Stanford. So today I'm introducing this work titled Integrating Real-World Distractions into Virtual Reality. So this work was done at University of Chicago during my master's study, advised by Professor Pedro Lopes. So virtual reality enables users to be in an environment beyond their physical presence. With the proliferation of portable VR hardware, we're able now to enjoy the virtual experiences in a less controlled environment. So here, a user is solving a mysterious puzzle in VR in a public game room. Let's see what happened to him.
Can you just turn on the fan? Yeah.
So when users are enjoying a virtual experience in a less controlled environment, they are usually subject to distractions coming from the physical environment in conflict with the VR content they're consuming, which causes a break in immersion. Well, we can already use things like noise-canceling headphones to block certain kind of noises. Those headphones are only able to block sound up to a certain extent. They don't really work with, for example, multi-modal stimuli, such as the wind from the fan here, accidental touch, or even smell. So in this work, rather than ignoring or blocking distracting users from VR, we propose a new concept, which is integrating distractions into virtual reality to improve the user's sense of presence. So let's watch the same experience again with our concept applied. So here, the sensor box that we prototype attached to the user's headset detects a small set of distractive stimuli, such as wind, temperature, and sound. So when a distraction is being detected, our VR experience responds by mapping it to a predefined scene to map the distraction in the physical environment. So here, the wind from the fan was mapped to the movement of the curtain to associate with it. We see our technique to be applied to a wide range of different kinds of distractive stimuli. For example, the sudden sound caused by dropped objects, which could be now mapped to an explosion in the VR scene. Temperature change caused by AC or heaters, as well as long motorized sound from our coffee machines. So how do we know our technique works, or how our technique actually has an impact on users' VR experiences? To really understand that, we conducted 3 user studies. And I'm going to talk about the most important one first, which is our in-lab control study. Our first study is purposefully controlled, so we can intentionally create distractions at the same frequency for each participant, and really to understand how adding the distraction integration has an impact on their sense of immersion as well as the perceived distraction level. So we invited participants to the lab and have them play a classic Fruit Ninja game in VR. And for the first study, we introduced 9 distractions in total, which include 4 sound stimuli, 4 haptic stimuli, as well as a smell stimuli. Here I'm going to show you some clips from our actual study of how we created those distractions. So all of the audio stimuli were audio playback from a speaker to the right of the participants. I don't think the sound was working here, but the participants were hearing some laughing sound from the woman for the first demonstration here. All of the wind stimuli were coming from a hand fan. The temperature change, we use a heat lamp. And finally, we create a touch on users' back with a flushy toy on users when I throw on them. As of the mapping we created for this study associated with those distractions, we also propose two kind of mapping technique. The first one is what we call direct mapping, where we're trying to create mappings that 100% or like directly trying to map the source of the distractions. For example, laughing from a woman could be coming from like a witch in VR flying by. The accidental touch could caused by like a fruit bomb on user's back throwing fruits on them. Wind could caused by or like associate with the swinging of the tree and the visualization of the wind gust. Beyond direct mapping, we also want to offer flexibility of our technique, so we explore what we call stretch mapping, which are mapping not trying to directly 100% map with the distractions, but offer loosely some kind of like mapping to work with it. So this kind of mapping will offer more flexibility for designers when they're designing for mapping for distractions rather than one mapping per distraction. So the laughing sound could come from like a bird flying to the users. Touch could be caused by appearance of bats. And wind, instead of showing actual wind gust, it could be mapped to the appearance of the rains. So here are the full mappings that we designed for the 9 distractions in total we used for the study 1. We run this study with 12 participants, each of them going through the 3 conditions: direct mapping, stretch mapping, as well as baseline, which is wearing the noise-canceling headphone only. As of the immersion level, we see direct mapping is significantly better than the other 2 conditions in improving the user's sense of immersion. As of the perceived distractions, we see both direct and stretch mapping are already able to minimize the distractions to its minimal level. Around user preference, so our participants predominantly prefer having distraction integration into VR compared to no integration. So from our first study, we did this proof of concept study to validating our concept work. Now we really want to build up a prototype system to allow us to detect the distractions in real time and automatically trigger the mappings. So we built a prototype system. On the hardware level, we engineered a simple sensing module that allows us to detect a small set of distractive stimuli, such as wind, temperature change, door closing sound, car honing sound, and speech. So specifically, we have a wind sensor for detecting wind and temperature sensor to detect the temperature change. For all audio stimuli, we use a single microphone, which was connected to a laptop on the user's backpack, running through a ubiquitous pipeline for audio classification. Our technical evaluation shows a roughly 80% of detection accuracy across 5 distractions. On the software level, for the designer side, we have a simple script that allows the VR designer to connect their mapping design to the sensor output. On the end user level, we really want to give the users with full control of what they're allowed for integration into their virtual experiences. So before the start of any virtual experience, we present them like a menu and have them to choose what are those distractions they're allowed for integration. So now we have this system running real time. We want to deploy a real-world environment and to measure users' presence and distraction level as we did for the first study. But this time we really want to have them in an uncontrolled environment, like probably what we use VR for daily. So we used the same VR game, direct mapping this time, and the study was conducted in front of a residential building in Chicago in the winter. So here are some pictures from actual user studies. We see that for the second study, all of the distractions are naturally spontaneous happen in the environment, so none of this is being controlled, and our system detects those distractions and automatically trigger the mappings. Our results with 6 participants showed the trend as we saw in the first study, where having integration of distractions in VR improved the presence level and lowers the perceived distractions. So up until now, I introduced you to this concept of integrating distractions into virtual reality that was able to improve the user's immersion level. But we also have to admit that creating those mappings also require extra effort from our VR content creators. So to really explore this tension, we also conducted a study with 3 VR expert designers by giving them an existing museum scene and a set of distractions, stimuli to have them to design around. So here are some final design outputs from the 3 content creators that we studied. All of the 3 content creators found the process of creating mappings for distraction integration to be fun and easy. By interviewing those content creators, we also synthesized a set of design considerations for future designers and researchers looking toward integrating distractions into virtual reality. So today, I introduce you to this new concept of harnessing stimuli that distract us from VR into our benefits. Without any additional hardware, we are already able to deploy our concept in existing VR headset. Most of the current existing VR headsets already has microphone embedded, and we can use it to detect noises and have them to be integrated into the virtual experience to improve the sense of immersion. With simple sensor module shown in our work, we can start to detect more complex and multi-modal stimuli such as wind and temperature change. When we have more advanced sensor, we can fully expand the concept that we demonstrated in this paper to a wide range of stimuli. We see our work as the first step to exploring the fusion of contradicting sensory experience from the physical world and virtual world. There's a lot of potential to blend the 2 worlds better, and we're excited about it. With that, I'll end my talk here. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. I already see there are a lot of questions, so I think we only have time to take 2. And also, there will be a demo of this work where you can ask Yujie more questions. We can start.
Hi, my name is Nathan. I'm from Carnegie Mellon. Super interesting work, and I think this really does a lot to improve the immersion in VR. One question I have is sort of about like the intensity of these virtual distractions. Like, I'm imagining if I'm doing like a VR escape room and my bed turns on the heat, like if everything suddenly like catches on fire, that's probably super distracting in VR versus like, you know, the sun comes out or a fireplace turns on. So did you think about that at all, sort of the intensity of the virtual distraction and how that might impact the user's experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. So for this paper, we really focus on proof of concept of if having those distractions to be integrated could be helpful for users' VR immersion. Specifically, how we design those, for example, how they being displayed in the actual VR game is totally up to the control of content creators, how they want to like play around with their existing story. Like as what you're talking about, like a, for example, like a room escape game and a specific theme, the content designers themselves could probably like curate it based on their storyline of their own games.
Thank you for a very enlightening talk. I'm Seok-Han from Postech, South Korea. So my question is the possible coexistence with your approach and safety. So I conjecture that some external stimuli which is not congruent with the VR content may also target the user getting alerted about some external physical danger, right? So I just wonder how if you have thought about such some possible conflict scenario and some effective solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we really want to give users like full control about like what they allow for integration. Currently, we are mostly choosing like neutral stimuli that happen in our daily environment, but doesn't really want to signal like a warning, for example, like fire alarm, stuff like that. Signals like that are definitely not, we're gonna integrate it into VR because we still need to take off the headset and run to save our lives. So definitely we do consider a lot about like ethical consideration behind our concept, and we want to give it like the user full control about like what they allow for integration.
Well, thank you so much. Yep, we can take the rest of the questions offline.
Awesome.